take on an iconic climb this morning. You all know what it is. It's a beautiful morning, nice and cool, perfect conditions for an epic ride, I think. Well, I'm ready to get some work done. I'm here at the base. Had a wonderful descent, always fun. Now it's time to get some work done. 21 hairpin turns, 3,000 plus feet of elevation climb. I got some work to do. See you at the top. And we're underway. So we're approaching the official start of the climb here, and it was a busy morning. There were a number of cyclists out trying the Alpe that morning, and so I had some good company with me. Now, I have to tell you that nervous energy and adrenaline can tend to make you want to start a little bit faster than you should, and I anticipated that, so I was just trying to temper my efforts at the start, which we are about to approach here. The official start is right at this particular corner. You can see that yellow sign. That is the official starting point, and we're underway. And now we're on the Alpe. So this is an hour plus climb for most folks, unless you're one of those world-class climbers. 3,000 plus feet of climbing, 21 hairpin turns. Many of you probably are already very familiar with this from the so many times this has been featured in the Tour de France. And in fact, every corner or every turn is named after someone or multiple people that have won this particular stage in the Tour de France. And we'll mention that as we get up to that first hairpin turn. So we're here. The bottom section is generally the steepest in terms of grade. So it starts off with a bit of a bite, and you do ascend rather quickly. And there's so many people out this particular morning that traffic coming up the Alpe was not that much of a problem. Motorists are very comfortable. They know this is well traveled by cyclists, so did not have any angry confrontations, any misunderstandings, or situations where I felt there was any danger at all involved in terms of ascending. So I would have to encourage anyone that is considering one of those bucket list type rides to consider the Alpe to Huez, because it is so cycling friendly. Now granted, it is a resort town, and they do have other things going on this particular mountain. You see here one of the many hiking trails that are featured climbing this particular Alpe. I've seen some folks, I think one individual in particular, descending on a mountain bike, not taking the street. It's just going down the same trail that the hikers are going up. So that was fascinating to see that person disappear down beyond the trees, crossing the road. So you have just about anybody and everybody from every persuasion attracted to this area. Of course, you know, those with motorcycles and sports cars, of course, love these iconic climbs and turns as well. But that to say, this particular area is well suited to cyclists. There are a number of bike lanes in and around the area at the base, so you can turn this into something a lot more than just a single purpose ride in terms of just climbing the Alpe. You can turn this into an all-day ride through some of the various areas up in the mountains. Even once you get up in Huez and above and beyond, there's roads up there that you can take to go back down to the valley and other places, and see just what the Alps here in southern France has to offer. And this, I have to say, was a perfect morning. I was expecting from what I heard from the bike shop, and I'll mention that in a second as well, that this was a very hot time of the year to take on the Alp, that had to expect some very hot weather when I arrived. But fortunately, when we arrived, it was 50-something degrees at night, and a very cool 60-ish, 70s, I think, during the entire course of my climb. So I was very comfortable from a temperature perspective. Did not feel in any way that the temperature was a factor in my climbing. The only thing I would mention that is something to keep in mind is that while this area is very cycling friendly, for those of us from the States who are used to every store having sports drinks, this is not so in Europe, and particularly in France. I never ever saw a Gatorade or Powerade once in any of the many places that I visited, even though I was definitely looking for it. So I would say that you should either plan to visit a pro bike shop before climbing the Alp if you do want to have some either gels or other type of nutrition to bring with you, or particularly sports drinks, if that's something that you always include in your rides. And you can see here we're entering the first hairpin turn, and if you noticed on that rock face, that was the first of the signs that indicate what turn we're on, and this is turn 21. It's the first one, and you can see just the gorgeous views of the valley. I mean, the Alp is an amazing climb. It's situated in an area that is just unparalleled in terms of its beauty, and that's why it's so popular. You can see here as I'm approaching a group that is attacking the climb, and so you see cyclists all day long, before your ride, during, and afterwards. Now, getting back to the question of nutrition, because this is important, the only other option that I would suggest, other than visiting a pro bike shop, is to plan to bring some mix, like either Hammer Nutrition or Infinite, or some other nutrition mix with you in powder form that you can take with you from the U.S. Over there. Probably, I would imagine, in your check-in bag. Now, that being said, once you get here, there's plenty of places where you can get water, and that shouldn't be a problem. So I ended up riding up the Alp with no gels and no sports drinks, so it was just water. And so I'd tell you that made it a little bit more tough for me. I'm used to having those consumables on some tough efforts. So I have to say, was not looking for a personal best on this particular day. But the funny thing is if you never climb it again, then it's definitely going to be a personal best. So I guess until I come back, it will be my personal best. But not to belabor that, one of the things I wanted to also mention here at the outset was this whole thing about what about the bike? How you're coming from the U.S. particularly. Okay, how are you going to make arrangements to go someplace thousands of miles from home and be able to have a comfortable means of climbing the Alpe d'Huez? I have to tell you, there's a number of options available. Of course, the one that's the most obvious is bring your bike with you. And of course, that's going to be the most comfortable option. It's the one that you're most familiar with. It's fitted to you, and can't say that you can go wrong there from an actual experience perspective. Particularly if you've got your mount for your Garmin or other computer, your pedals are set up right. You might even have a power meter that you might want to use to check out how you did, some stats and whatnot. Those are all available to you, of course, if you do bring your bike. And the downside is that you got to lug your bike everywhere you go. So unless you're turning this outing or this trip into a complete bike experience, the bike itself can become more of a liability At least that's what it would have been for us, as we were planning on touring a number of places that had nothing to do with cycling, and being concerned about the welfare of one's ride was just something that I did not want to have to be concerned with among all the other details. So I did not bring my ride with me, and as such I had to make sure I had other accommodations. Now, the beauty of the Alpe is that there is at least one bike shop, if not multiple bike shops, in town at the summit that you can rent from. And so they were very, very good. I just got to put a plug in for Cycle Huez, and I'll put a link in the description. They were very, very helpful. I had been in communication with them in the months leading up to this trip, and they were very friendly and helpful. They had a bike that was well suited for me. It was not the lightest bike, but it appeared to be a carbon frame bike. They outfitted it with the correct pedals that I needed, so I did not have to take pedals with me. So it was all set up and ready to go that day. And they were even willing to do me the added favor, for a small charge, to drop the bike off at the hotel the night before, so that I could have it early the next morning, instead of waiting for the bike shop to open. You can see here we're passing turn 20, and so they did all that. So I had a chance to take a look at my bike. The night before, I had gone down early the next morning, got it fitted with my Garmin mount, and was able to get a head start, I guess you could say, on this climb early in the cool part of the day, rather than waiting until after 9 when the shop usually opens. So I would recommend that too. And hopefully, if you do get a hotel accommodation in Huez, at the top in one of the resorts, they should be able to, if you have the right hotel, like I did, they may be able to accommodate having your bike held for you at the hotel overnight. It was of great benefit to me, particularly also because I was arriving late and would not be able to pick the bike up from the shop prior to their closing. That all said, so that part, the logistics, all worked out really well for me with respect to the bike. I was very happy with that. And I'll even put a plug in for the hotel. I'll put that link in the description too, as we are passing now turn 19. Just look at that. That is just amazing. You can see how far we've already climbed from the valley floor, just after only 3 turns. So the grade is very steep, and it does at times go to almost a false flat, I would say. And you pick up quite a bit of speed, and but of course you pay for it, because there's always a steep section behind those. But I'd rather not narrate too much and just let you guys enjoy the views and the hairpin turns. There were a couple of interesting parts of the climb that I might jump in and make note of, but other than that, I think that the ride itself speaks volumes to those who might be interested in taking on this challenge. One last thing I do want to say before I cut out, and that is that one of the things that was instrumental in my making that decision to come all the way across the water to Huez to climb the Alpe was the fact that I had had an immersive experience already in the virtual world of Zwift with this mountain. Had climbed it virtually more than 10 times on the trainer, and so I had become accustomed to the amount of effort involved, and so it was not unknown to me what I was getting myself into, and that I was not traveling halfway across the world only to blow up over here. So that said, it was an amazing experience. It was definitely tougher, I will say, in real life than it is on the trainer, so be prepared for that. You are dealing with situations like, you're working with heavier bikes, you're working under sometimes not ideal conditions, maybe jet lag, and then of course, like in my situation, the whole nutrition thing was not quite optimal for me. But and of course the altitude. You have real meters of climbing here as opposed to virtual meters. So you have to contend with altitude as well. But hey, let me tell you, the suffering, it doesn't even really register with you how hard it is, because of the fact that you are just like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like almost like a dream. Like, am I really doing this? Am I really here? Am I actually on this fabled mountain climbing this? You almost have to pinch yourself to say, hey, wow, is this reality? Because it's something that you look forward to for so long, and then that day finally comes, and here you are. You're actually climbing it. So everything that I had hoped it to be. And it's something that you just cannot completely convey in a narrated video. It has to be experienced. And it's just absolutely has to be experienced. So that's my take on Alpe d'Huez. Enjoy. And here we're approaching one of the villages that you'll find along the way up the climb to the summit. And this village is La Gare dans les Hommes. And translated, it means guardians. Very fitting name for the first village. And you can see very cute, typical French village. It's just beautiful. It makes you almost want to stop. Almost. But I continue on my way. And here's one of the guardians of this small village. And thankfully, the pups over in France are a little bit more docile towards cyclists than over here in our parts. From South Carolina, anytime you see a dog, you're expecting to have to sprint it at some point. So I was relieved that I did not have to include a sprint in my climb that morning. So that's the first village, and there will be others that you'll pass along the way. And so that's part of the charm and the beauty of the climb of the Alpe. It's just an atmosphere that is charged with the excitement of the climb, and that only builds as you get near the finish. Another one of the highlights here that I just want to point out is this particular turn, turn 11. It had to be one of the most spectacular turns that I had encountered on the climb. For this reason and this reason alone, the cliff face is so steep that it actually overhangs the hairpin turn on this particular turn. I don't know if the video is going to really be able to capture the essence of that, but it was at one point alarming, especially as a cyclist, wondering if I'm going to get something dropped on my head, but also breathtaking. So really cool. It just shows the sheer magnitude of the engineering effort required just to build a road up in these beautiful mountains. Just spectacular. I think it was at this point, I think I might have even pulled over for a brief snapshot here. I don't recall if this was the turn. No, I kept on going. So there are some other beautiful moments on this particular climb. I wish you could see the full beauty of the view that I had as I was ascending. My forward-facing camera unfortunately did not afford me the best view of the valley itself. I might include a snapshot or two here during the climb to give you an idea. As you can imagine, this was the spot that I felt compelled to stop and just take in the view. And check this out, folks. An amazing view. All courtesy of turn number 9. And here we are approaching turn 7, which more famously is known as Dutch Corner. You can see the church rising above the trees in the background, and it is this corner that every time the Tour de France comes through, it is transformed by thousands of spectators dressed in orange. And it's because of this, it has garnered the nickname Dutch Corner. And while we won't find any spectators today dressed in orange, I will say that the presence that you can sense of what this corner must have been like during a tour is palpable. You can almost sense it. In fact, I've got a picture here that can describe to you what that experience is like. Check it out. Wow, I can only imagine what it would be like to be here during a tour, just to be a spectator here. That is why so many people flock to this mountain. It is such a symbol of everything that cycling is about. And so here we are, we've just passed the sign for turn 7, and it is a great place to actually stop and just take it all in. There's some benches, as you can see, picnic table. Great place to maybe do a halfway stop of sorts and just kind of rest and recharge for the remainder of the climb. But as I am, I just keep marching on. So enjoy. Okay, I gotta explain what y'all are seeing here. This may look like at first glance that this older couple is blowing my doors off climbing the Alp. But after I had a chance to check out the video later on, I found out that the lady is riding an e-bike. And so that made me feel a whole lot better about the situation. I didn't feel too good about it at the time. But because it seemed like this woman was riding this heavy mountain bike and like effortlessly passing me while I am suffering so bad. But that just wasn't the case. Now, the gentleman behind her who was chasing her, I have to say, he was really putting an all-out effort and try to keep up with her. And I give him kudos for that, because as you can see here, in just the few seconds that I've been narrating this, they are already up the road. So I'll tell you, if you want to climb the Alp effortlessly, then an e-bike is the way to go. Make sure your battery is as massive as possible, and you will absolutely get the king of the mountain. I'm certain of that. But if you do want to suffer along with the rest of us, then just do it the natural way. Do it the traditional way. But I do give this folks kudos. This gentleman obviously must be a local, I'm assuming. Maybe he climbs this regularly. This could be his morning routine, who knows. But and what a beautiful morning routine it is, huh, folks? But anyhow, it was a little bit disheartening for me at first to have that happen to me, but I feel much better about it now. All right, okay, back to the video. Actually, there's one more thing I wanted to mention here. It was at this corner that I ended up having to take my first stop to take a break. Let's see, what corner are we at? We're at turn 6, so we got 6 turns to go. Getting really close, tantalizingly close. And I don't think it was the older couple that really shook me up, made me want to stop. But I truly had been feeling, now we're over an hour into this, just depleting in terms of my reserves. And I think that's because that I wasn't really feeding. There was no nutrition during the climb. It's also getting hotter as the day progresses. So I found that running on pure water is not the way to go when climbing the Alp. At least for me, my first attempt. You know, if you've done this 50 times already and you've been acclimated to it, that may be a different story for you. But for me, I really felt like I was transitioning from burning glucose out of my muscles to more of a fat burning, I guess you could say. And looking at where my performance started falling off, seems to bear that out, that I had sort of used up my glucose supply, my muscles and my liver and other reserves, and that now at this point I was basically burning fat to get myself up the mountain. And as some of you who have studied sports nutrition know, that when you're fat burning, you simply cannot metabolize fat as quickly as you can glucose. So the systems in your body that can produce energy from your fat reserves is just not going to be able to provide you with enough energy to maintain the same power level that you can when your body already has the energy it needs stored right there where it needs it in your muscles. So for me, I noticed a decrease in performance, and I noticed that for the first time I actually had to stop and take some breaks because I either was outpacing my reserves and I needed to recharge, or it could have been altitude, just really can't say, or it could have just been the fact that the Alp is truly harder in real life than any simulation can describe it. So, but that being said, even though I had to change the way I dealt with the last maybe third of the climb because of the way I was feeling, it did not mean that I enjoyed it any less. I'm not looking to break any records, get any Strava KOMs on this climb. I think that would be ridiculous given its enormity of popularity. But I would say for myself, just being able to finish a climb like this, a bucket list climb, is truly, I think, that was the goal for me on this particular day, was to make sure that I could make it to the top, and that I didn't push myself too hard, too fast, blow up, get sick, or worse, pass out or something. So thankfully none of those things happened during the ride. I had a very good experience overall. I took the measures I needed to take in order to be safe on the mountain, and I enjoyed it from start to finish. And I should just mention too that photographer, that is somewhat of a regular during the riding season, you could say, on the mountain. There are professional photographers that will take your picture or several pictures as you're climbing the mountain, and giving you an opportunity to have something to take back with you. If, of course, you go to their website and check out their offerings. I did not, but that's not to say that it wouldn't be worthwhile for somebody else. So I happen to have this footage here that was my keepsake, I guess you could say. And you can tell we're in the clouds now. We're getting very close. We are just about ready to enter town and finish this thing off. So this is where it sort of gets exciting, but at the same time, I have to tell you folks, I don't have much video left because I was so concerned about either running out of card space or battery life. I ended up cutting the video off until just before the finish to make sure that I had that reserve for the end of the climb. So when the video cuts out, forgive me that it's going to jump right to the finish, but that's just unfortunately the limitation of the hardware I was using that particular day. So with that disclaimer aside, enjoy the rest of the video. Alright, so with the final rest stop completed, it's now on with the final push to the finish line. I have been climbing now for well over an hour and 20 minutes, with just about 10 more minutes to go. And even though I'm tired, I'm excited because I know that the finish is just around the next couple of turns. As we are turning around one of the last hairpins, we're well over 5,000 feet of climbing at this point, and I'm excited to get this finished. We're going to cut away the video at this point and cut to the finish, and there it is, right in front. And there you go. I have to tell you, I am so thankful for having had the opportunity to climb Alpe d'Huez. It's an amazing, unforgettable climb. I would highly recommend it to those of you who love climbing or the Alps or just cycling in general. It's a challenge, yes, but it's one that's achievable. And a few snapshots to commemorate it. And of course, you always got to have a nice Coke at the end of a hard effort. So, just want to thank you all for joining me on this. And I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please do go ahead and like the video. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. There's more content like this, plus some Zwift racing and some other content that you can check out. I appreciate y'all. God bless, and take care.